In this lesson, we will learn about the slope of a line. The slope of a line is how steep a line is. I have some example diagrams here to the right. So think about this first example like you're going up a hill. If you're going up, your slope will always be positive. If you're going down, which is the second graph, your slope will always be negative. If you're going straight up, this is a vertical line where the slope is undefined. Think about it like it's very, very steep. For this last example, it's a horizontal line. That means you're not going up or down. This is when the slope is zero because there's no steepness. We can find slope depending on what you're given. Sometimes you're given ordered pairs and asked to find slope, which would be our first three examples right here. Sometimes you're given an equation and asked to find slope. We're going to look at different scenarios of that. Slope is rise over run. The rise part is the change in y, the run part is the change in x. So when you have ordered pairs, this is the formula that you want to use. M is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Usually you're given two ordered pairs. You'll call the first pair, like for example here my number 1, here's my two ordered pairs where I'm asked to find slope. So my first pair here would be my x1 and my y1. My second pair here would be my x2 and my y2. And all an ordered pair is an x and a y coordinate put together. So let's go ahead and start on a few examples. We're going to start with finding the slope when you're given ordered pairs, and then we're going to talk about how to find the slope when you have an equation of a line. So for this first example, I'm going to go through and plug these into my formula. So I have m equals, and I'm following this formula here to the right, y2 minus y1. y2 is negative 3 minus y1, which is 6, over x2, which is 1, minus x1, which is a negative 5. It's a negative right there. Now I just need to simplify this. Negative 3 minus 6, this is negative 9. You could do your change and see that. 1 minus negative 5. When you're subtracting a negative, it's the same thing as adding, which I just did change. 1 plus 5 is 6. The last step would be to always simplify your answer. I can simplify these two because 3 goes into both of them. So divide them both by 3 to simplify your fraction. Negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3 over 6 divided by 3 is 2. This is the slope of a line that would have these two ordered pairs. Let's do another example. So I have x1, y1. It's always important to label this so that you don't make a mistake. So again, I'm ready. So m equals y2, this is 2, y2 is 4, minus y1, which is 0, over x2, which is negative 1, minus x1, which is another negative 1. So let's go ahead and simplify. 4 minus 0 is 4. Negative 1 minus negative 1, let me do my change here, this would be 0. Remember that when you divide by 0, this is actually undefined. You can't divide by 0, so what that tells me is the slope is undefined, which means that ordered pair would be on a vertical line. This is supposed to be number 3, my third example. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. My y2 is 3 minus y1, which is also 3. x2 is 4 minus x1, which is a negative 2. 3 minus 3 is 0. 4 minus negative 2, that is 6. 0 divided by 6 is 0. That's the slope of the line, which tells you this is a horizontal line. All horizontal lines have a slope of 0. For number 4, here I have an equation, so I cannot use this first formula. What you want to do is to write it in what we call slope-intercept form, and we'll talk more about this in the next section. But slope-intercept form just means you need to get your y by itself. Once you have your y by itself, the slope will be your m right here. It is the number that is in front of your x. That's what the m stands for. But it's important to know y must be by itself before you read that m. Let's go ahead and continue. So number 4, I have y equals negative x over 2 plus 1. Y is already solved for, so all I need to do is to read the number in front of x. Here there's no number, so you're going to go ahead and put a 1. So the number in front of my x is right here. It's called a coefficient. So the coefficient there is I have a fraction. In the numerator, I have a negative 1 over the denominator, I have a 2. So that slope is simply negative 1/2. For my next example, number 5, y is not by itself. So I actually do have to do some algebra to get the y by itself. First thing you want to do is move this 5x to the other side. 5 is positive, so to move it, you would need to subtract. So if, in other words, when I move it to this side, it just needs to be a negative. So I have 6y equals mx. The x is supposed to come first. So move this to the other side here. It becomes a negative 5x. Keep the sign of the 4 because I did not move it. Next, I need to divide by 6, divide by 6, divide by 6. So my 6's here will cancel. I get y equals negative 5 over 6x plus, I can divide this, simplify this by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So what is my slope? The slope is the number in front of your x as long as you have solved for y. So for number 5, the slope is negative 5 over 6. For number 6, we're going to do the same thing. Then y is not by itself. Start by moving this negative 2x to the other side. So I have negative y equals, my negative 2 is going to change signs because it's crossing that equal sign to become a positive, and then drop your 9. It's important to remember you drop the y with whatever's in front of it. That's why I dropped the negative. I still have to get rid of that negative, and you do that by dividing by whatever is in there. If you don't see a number, there's an understood 1. So divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. Here I get y equals 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. 9 divided by negative 1 is a negative 9. So the slope is what is in front of your x, which is right here. For number 6, my slope will be negative 2. You also need to know how to find the slope of a vertical and horizontal line. Here we went over vertical and horizontal lines. For all vertical lines, the slope will be undefined. Vertical lines are written in the form of x equals some number, we'll call it c. So if you see x equals a number, your slope will always be undefined. Horizontal lines, the slope will always be 0, and they are written in the form of y equals some number. So there's not going to be two variables with horizontal and vertical lines. So when you see y equals a number like y, if I ask you to find the slope of y equals 4, I know that's a horizontal line, so the slope would be 0. If I ask you to find the slope of x equals 1, this is just x equals a number, so the slope would be undefined.
Okay, let's do some more examples in finding slope. So for number 1, we have two ordered pairs. We'll call these x1, y1, x2, y2. So remember the slope formula. I'll go ahead and put it here when you have ordered pairs. So for number 1, I have m equals y2 minus y1, that's 4 minus 13. x2 minus x1, that's negative 2 minus 6. 4 minus 13 is a negative 9. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. Two negatives here become a positive, and the final answer, I can't simplify that more, would be 9 out of 8. All right, let's go ahead and do number 2. Again, I'm going to label these x1, y1, x2, y2. So I have m equals y2 minus y1, that's 8 minus 4. x2 minus x1, that's 6 minus 3. 8 minus 4 is 4. 6 minus 3 is 2. And finally, I can do 4 divided by 2, which is 2. For number 3, it says find the slope of y equals -6. You would need to remember what this line looks like. It's either horizontal or vertical. I remember it like y equals -6 means y will always be -6. So you would need to draw a line going through that -6. So this is a flat line. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. For number 4, it's going to be exactly the opposite. So x equals 5.4. Let's put that there. This is going to be a vertical line going up and down. Excuse my line. If it is vertical, the slope is undefined. So if you want to remember that, remember x equals a number will always be vertical. Y equals a number will always be horizontal. Okay, that sums up our lesson on slope. Go ahead and practice. If you need to redo the video and go back over, you can do that. And otherwise, that's all I have.